Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Deirdre Denise Hayes, and I am a professor of practice in the Tulane School of Social Work. Welcome to the virtual Elk Street Health Spot. As some of you know, the Elk Street Health Spot is a monthly health fair held outside of the front door of the Tulane School of Social Work building, and we did it every month before the pandemic. It was an opportunity to provide health screenings and information about various social service programs in our community. It was also an opportunity for us to outreach and talk to the people who frequent the space in front of our building and who frequent the bus stops. The Health Spot is now moved to the virtual platform, providing information on relevant topics that affect the clients we serve. Today, we will be discussing voter suppression, voting rights, and voter registration. We are honored to have individuals who are on the front lines of advocacy and civil rights to share information about the current issues. Therefore, I hope you enjoy our speakers, Lawrence Perry, Ron Wilson, Nia Wilkes, Checo Yancy, and Melissa Haley. A brief bio will be read before each speaker. We also have with us Carrie Mulder, who is the Outreach and Media Specialist for Tulane School of Social Work. And we're going to get started with our first speaker, who is our student today, Mr. Lawrence Perry from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he received his bachelor's degree in social work from Temple University. He is currently a graduate student at the Tulane School of Social Work, pursuing a master's degree. He has previous experience working in child welfare, as a case manager, and he's also created programs with his past agencies, including one called Dads Can Do It Too, which aids African-American males providing support and resources to fathers to become strong role models, providers, and nurturers of their children. After graduating from Tulane, Lawrence plans to pursue a career as a medical social worker and continue his passion for social work. Once again, welcome to everyone here. Please drop your questions in the chat box and we will address them at the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayes, for that lovely introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen. For my presentation is on voters' rights and how it relates to social work. So this year we have a big election this year, and what information that you guys, everybody needs to know about this year in the election. So let's first talk about social work and voting. So voting is a human right here in the United States of America. And we as individuals, this is our opportunity to speak out in our voice. How it pertains to social work, and we have a code of ethics that we follow as social workers, that social workers have to understand the importance of the policy because social workers are in policy. We provide policy making here in the city of New Orleans. We also provide policies throughout the country, even in major ones such as Washington, D.C. We also are big advocates for different communities who do not have a voice. And this is voting for the right people to talk to our public or the people that we're trying to address is important to social work. So it's also, it brings us a well-being of our voice as a social worker being heard, because many people think that social workers run rampant all the time, because we do, but it also gives us the time to expand what we love and dear and we're so passionate about. So first thing I want to talk about is how to qualify to vote. So to qualify to vote here in the United States, you have to be a US citizen. And you have to be at least 17 years old and must be older if you're 18 by the next election. If you're registered in the state of Louisiana, 16-year-olds may register in person, but you have to have a motor vehicle license at the age of 18. If you're on probation or parole for 5 years, you can also register to vote. No, it's not under judgment or full mental capacity that you can vote. So if you have a mental disorder, you can still vote. And if you want to seek registration, reach out to your parish. How to register to vote. So my main focus is on Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish. So I listed here on this slide where in Orleans Parish, where you can go to vote and register to vote in person. They also, you can also register to vote online. That link is right there, the www.sosla.gov. That's where you can register to vote if you'd like to do that online. All you need is a current driver's license or a state identification card. And you need your birth certificate. And you can, if you don't have those documents, you also have to have a signature document with you. So like a bill, a check, a payroll, something that has a signed documentation that you can present. Their hours also from the one here in Orleans Parish is between 8 and 4, and they're open Monday through Friday. So everybody, we know our rights to vote, that's in our constitutional right that we can vote. But does everybody know what they are qualified to vote? So if you're registered to vote, if you're the polls are open, when the polls are open, you're in line, the polls are about to close, you can still vote while you're in line. They cannot turn you away if you're still in line if you're trying to vote. They do not have the right. If you do not have your ID with you, you may bring other documentation stating that's your point of reference, such as mail or any documentation with your name on it that you are a resident at that house or apartment. If you are an individual or you know an individual who does not speak English and speaks another language, then they have the right to also vote because it is in the Writers Act in Section 203. In that act that they do have the right to vote. They cannot be turned away because they do not understand what is on the voting ballot. And people who are formerly incarcerated or felon convictors can vote. You can check out your voters registration office to see how you can become eligible or if you are eligible to still vote. The rest, to how to request a mail-in ballot. This is a big thing that we're having this year due to COVID-19 here. And a lot of people are wondering, how do I request a mail-in ballot or absentee ballot, as other people may know it as. Here in the state of Louisiana, the last day to request a mail-in ballot is on October 30th. They have to have it by 4:30 p.m. So you still have some time to hand that in. I listed here on this slide, Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parishes, where you need to mail those to. And also add the link right here at the bottom where you can submit that form. So on the mail-in ballot, it'll be a regular form. It's a one-sheet form, just filling out why you are requesting a mailing ballot for that. So it's very easy to do. It's very self-explanatory. They also have a number that you can call that's in the future slide of mine that you can also call if you need assistance with that. Okay, what to bring to the polls? This is a big question because people are like, oh my God, I need, I forgot this or I forgot that. So I want to break that, make this so much stressful, so much easier than it already is. So what you need, please bring your wallet and your license. A lot of people, you'll be surprised, forget their license or they don't have it. In the great state of Louisiana, we do have you can bring your ID on your phone. So that if you do not have that app on your phone, on your smartphone, I suggest you putting that on your phone because that's actually they can use that also to validate your ID. You can also, if you're in the military, you can bring your military ID also. Make sure that the ID is signed. That's the major thing that they're looking for because when you go to check in, they have to verify your signature. So you will sign and then they will verify the signature. Where to vote? There is a telephone number right there you can call, the 504-653-8300 that you can reach out to know where your polling location is in your district. And also, if you'd like to go online, I listed right there, it's www.voterpoll.sosla.gov, where you can also put in your parish and your location where you're at, so you can know where to vote and where is the closest voting and where you have to cast your ballot at. What is in this election? So this is a very, very, very important election because we are voting a new president this year. Also, we have a couple of U.S. Senate positions open, a couple of U.S. House representatives, state Supreme Court. The District Attorney of New Orleans Parish is up for re-election. Some local judges, some municipal government, and the school boards are also up for election. The election date this year is on November 3rd. Please, please, please remember that date, November 3rd. Between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. So you have plenty of time to go and vote. There should be no excuses why you cannot vote. It's open before people go to work, some of it, and after you get off, or you can go before work or before with children. I understand people have children. You can also cast your vote with them. If you would like to know more about who is on the ballot, I've listed right here on the website, www.ballotpedia.org. Gives you information of all the people here in Louisiana that's on the ballot, who's on the presidential ballot, who's on the Senate and House ballot, who is up for election or running for these positions. In local elections, in the local race, we have 3 candidates, such as a district attorney race, and some judgments are primary elections. Elections do not end up with 51% of the vote of one candidate on November 3rd, will result in a runoff schedule of December 5th, 2020, which is entail if we're still voting, if people are still voting and we have 51%, that means about the candidate. And lastly, please remember your vote counts. It's not hard enough to say that my vote does not count. Your vote does count. You think that you're just a number, do not think like that, because your voice does matter at the end of this decision. This is a big, I can't express more how big this election is going to be for our country. So we need everybody's participation to go out and vote, make sure you vote, spread the word that people who are non-voting, who do not want to vote for a candidate, they need to voice their opinion, because they're not just voting for somebody in office for maybe 2 or 4 years, but they're also voting on how they want to shape our world with everything that's going on. So I believe this is a very important election, and I highly suggest that you advocate and be your own social worker and advocate for everybody to go out and vote. And this is my credentials. If you'd like to get in contact me, I listed it right here. It's lperry9@tulane.edu. If you have any questions for me in regarding how to vote, where to vote, I'm more than welcome to help anyone out with that. And that concludes my presentation. I want to thank everybody for their attention.
Great. Awesome. Lawrence, thank you so much. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. It is Mr. Ronald Wilson. He graduated from the Tulane University School of Law in May 1975. He was admitted to the Louisiana Bar in October of '75. He is licensed to practice law in the states of Colorado, Oregon, New York, and the District of Columbia. He is currently admitted to appear before the United States Supreme Court. Since graduating from law school, he has been engaged in the private practice of law, primarily public interest in civil rights litigation. He is a cooperating attorney with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, as well as the American Civil Liberties Union. He is a member of various boards and foundations, including the American Civil Liberties Union National Board of Directors, the American Civil Liberties Union of Louisiana, the Amistad, and the Legal Aid Bureau. Please welcome Ron Wilson.
Hey, thank you, Carrie, and thanks for inviting me. Lawrence did a fantastic job. It's very difficult to follow him. He was very, very inclusive. He told you everything that you need to do in order to cast your ballot. You know, sometimes people, particularly young people, ask me, why should I vote? Why is there a need to vote? And what I do, I refer them to, well, just the other night, I watched a 2-hour special on John Lewis. And I refer them to that March 7th, 1965 march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I say, look at that. And if after looking at that, you still don't think there's a need to vote, then, I mean, something is wrong with you. You know, historically, what people have done to A, obtain the right for you, and B, to retain it for you, it's enough to make you want to sleep at the voting polls. We look historically, if you look historically at voting, initially the Constitution made no provision for anyone to vote other than white males who owned property. It wasn't until the 15th Amendment that African Americans got the right to vote, and women got it as a result of the 19th Amendment. So what you have to do is just not go down there and register to vote. You have to vote. You have to also be conscious of devices and ruses now to take that right away from you. Historically, if you go back to it, this whole push towards voter ID and extended voter suppression, it occurred really right after the election of President Obama. And a case out of North Carolina had been litigated for years and years and years, where the judge said with surgical precision, the North Carolina legislature sought to knock out or to minimize the votes of those individuals who voted for Barack Obama. What they did a study to determine, now, where did he get his votes from? And they determined that he got college students from the Sunday go to vote meetings where individuals would meet at their churches on Sunday and go from Sunday to cast a ballot. And they saw that, did a study and saw that African Americans were less likely to have voter IDs than Caucasians. So they imposed a requirement with voter IDs. And then you look at the state of Texas went so far as to say, we will accept state voter IDs, but we won't accept student IDs. We'll accept a hunter's license, a gun permit. They determined that Caucasians were more likely than non-Caucasians to have gun permits. So they accepted that. You know, so the courts have struck these measures down. And we have to be careful some of the subtle ways that voter suppression can take place. For instance, with shutting down the post office. You can't mail in your ballot. Are restricting the number of polling places. Where was it in I think it was Louisville, for 6,000 people, there was one polling place. And you'll find that most polling places are limited, are restricted in neighborhoods of people of color. Well, you have the right to vote, but you may show up on election day and find that the line is 4 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours long to cast your ballot. And that's another form of voter suppression. So I guess you have to go and you have to stick with it. You have to say that too many individuals have died, have sacrificed, and have given their lives for me to exercise this right. And I can't take it for granted. We've been doing voting rights. I thought when we initially did the voting rights cases back in early 1980, the last thing I thought was that by the year 2020, we'd still be fighting not only voting rights cases, but more sinister forms of voter suppression. You know, people finding several devices in several ways, you know, to restrict access to the poll. And, you know, if you're a student of democracy, you know, you have to stop and ask yourself, why in the greatest democracy in the world do they go through such great lengths to prevent people from voting? Take Australia, for instance. In Australia, it's a fine not to vote. That's how much they encourage people to vote. But here we make voting impossible. We saw the litigation involving COVID, where legislatures tried to prevent people from voting, even though they have this fear of contracting COVID at the voting polls. In Wisconsin, people were forced to go out and vote and stand in the snow and the cold for over 4 hours to cast a ballot. But the amazing thing is that they did, and they were there in large numbers. So what you have to keep in mind a couple of things. One, the right to vote. It was once said that a voteless person is a hopeless person. And I truly believe that saying. And secondly, you have to, it's like anything else in life. Once you attain it, you have to fight hard to maintain it. And every day there'll be tricks and devices to prevent you from exercising the sacred right of voting, having people at the polls to intimidate you. For instance, in some places, what they've done to Latinx, Hispanics, is they've said, we will have observers at the polls, and if you come out to vote, and we'll follow you home, if it's determined that you have an undocumented person at your home, we're going to report you, report them, and remove them from the house. So that's a sort of a scare tactic that they've used, that people have used in some of these cases. Even with those scare tactics, those individuals, those Hispanics, are still going out to vote, and we saw how they voted for, Beto when he ran for the Senate. So, again, what I'll leave you with is the right to vote is a sacred right. It's a right that you should cherish. Two, you have to realize every vote counts. In the presidential election, Gore Bush, it's 532 votes, which made the difference. And in an election for the Virginia delegates, House of Delegates, it was an actual tie. They won by pulling straws. So, every vote counts. Just think how you would feel if you woke up and found out that your candidate or your friend or your relative, was an election that was either a tie or they lost by 1 vote. And you were so certain you were going to win, you said, I'm not going to the polls. Just think how horrible you would feel. You have both a civic duty and a civic obligation to A, register to vote, and B, cast that ballot. As a matter of fact, I've gone so far with my relatives, I've said, anyone who fails to vote will be forever banned from getting anything from me, Coca-Cola or whatever, that I am that vigilant about voting. So I thank you for allowing me to participate in this program and to emphasize the real importance of voting. And again, every vote counts. You never know. You never know that your vote may be the one that decides the election, and you can never take it for granted. And I think that with the election coming up on November the 3rd, there is a lot at stake in this election. I think the future of democracy is at stake in this election. So, you have a chance of determining the direction which this country will go. And that's your decision. I don't seek to tell someone how to vote. My primary concern is that you exercise your right to vote and exercise it intelligently. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. That was very informative and very diverse of what you were saying in your presentation. For the next speaker, I have the pleasure in introducing Mr. Checo Yancy. Checo Yancy is the director of the Voters Organization to Educate Voters CA, an organization established to advocate for restoring the voting rights for former incarcerated people, which he has in his voting rights restored, and he was able to vote for the first time in over 35 years. In his capacity of director of VOTE, he is, along with Mr. Norris Henderson, the executive director of VOTE, has worked timeless with LA Department of Corrections and the LA legislator, the Louisiana for Prison Alternatives, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the ACLU and other partners in pursuing the goals of restoring the voters' rights and more broadly in securing the human and civil rights for former incarcerated individuals. In addition to his work with VOTE, Mr. Yancy currently serves as the state president of the Louisiana Citizens United of Rehabilitation of Aaron Cure, a national organization whose mission is to help reduce crime through criminal justice reform. As one of the LA Cure community organizers, Yancy is also achieved involving with reintegrating people back into society after incarceration. Yancy also works with various community services and interactive in programs such as Cairo's prison mission, which allows him the opportunity to go back into the prison to minister the word of God, something he felt benefits him greatly while he was incarcerated. Before joining VOTE, Checo Yancy served as a mentor program director for the Capital Area Racial Correlation, an organization that assisted returning citizens in their efforts to make a successful transition to life in our free society. He has worked for this capacity for 6 years. After his release from the Louisiana State Penitentiary, Yancy was employed for 5.5 years as Administration for Personal Care Service, Inc. He is active member of the Grace of Companion Church in Baton Rouge and a member of the Kairos Avalor Advisory Board and a active volunteer for Promise Keeper Men of Integrity. Yancy served 20 years in the LSP. He's conducted record-wide incarcerated with exemplary receiving no disciplinary reports during the time of his incarceration. He was a Class A trustee and could travel outside of Angola on speaking enlightenment at student churches and other civil community groups, educating at risk youth for what crime and drugs can do to their lives. He has now been out of prison for 17 years. Checo is the most proud to be a hospice volunteer while incarcerated, which gave him the opportunity to provide the end-of-life care to inmates who were dying. He also tutors inmates who could not read or write. While in prison, Yancy was active in the church activities. He took many educational courses in business taught by the United States Justice. Mr. Yancy graduated from the Northwest Missouri Community College in computer technology while at LSP. Checo W. Yancy is also actively involved with the integration of persons back into society after incarcerated with the Capital Area Reentry Correlation. He has been out of prison for 17 years. Mr. Yancy was just given the Dr. Ernest Johnson Civil Service Award from the NAACP in 2020 for his work of being a part of getting the former incarcerated persons their voters' right. Since his release, Yancy also works with various community service interactive in programs such as Kairos Prison Mission, which allows him the opportunity to go back to Angola State Prison to minister the word of God, something he felt beneficial with him greatly while he was there. Once again, Mr. Yancy.
Thank you, sir. I mean, after the introduction there, I probably don't have to say anything else, you know, Mr. Perry, thank you. My name is Checo Yancy, and with Ronald Wilson, thank you for all that you've done to help us. And I know Neil Weeks, and you know, this is going to be a great time, an educational time for all of us. Voting is very important. It's a responsibility to exercise your right to vote, as Ronald was saying early. In fact, he was one of our attorneys that when we were fighting in court to get our voting rights for former incarcerated people, because I pay taxes, but my taxes pay salary to elected officials, but no one represented us. So we were fighting for full restoration of our civil rights. Again, I did something in 1983. I went to prison. It is my fault. I took responsibility for it. But now, I've been out now 17 years. I spent 7,309 days in Angola, but I made the most of it. I didn't let time do me. I did something with time to make sure that I became a better person. My motto now is that you know, in 2018, we've been fighting for 5 years to get voting rights for the former incarcerated people. And we actually started this organization. It was called the Angola Special Civics Project in Angola. We realized then that the laws, we couldn't do anything about the laws, but if we got our families and friends to register to vote, then they could lobby elected officials to change some of the laws and rules and regulations in prison, and to help men and women when they came out of prison to be a better person and become a part of society. And we started that in prison, and it was it was unbelievable how it was, because the guards didn't like what we were doing. They thought we were trying to overthrow the prison, and we had to explain to them, the only thing we're trying to do is get our families and friends to understand that if you become a registered voter and you go and you can speak to your legislator or your state senator, you can make some changes. And finally, they agreed that we wasn't doing anything wrong. We were just trying to better ourselves. In fact, we were keeping harmony in the prison. And now, you know, my motto is that, you know, I will beat you to the polls. In 2018, former State Representative Patricia Smith, she fought for us for years to get our voting right. We had sued people. We had a lot of attorneys that helped us. The NAACP, legal defense people, they were helping us. But we finally got the law in the state legislature to change that if you've been out of prison 5 years and did nothing else wrong, then you could go to your probation officer office, and they would give you a letter saying that you have been maintaining a good citizenship. Then you take that to your register of voters office, and you can become now a registered voter. I did all of those things. And our motto was that we are willing to fight one day more than our opponents. And I asked people, and I heard Mr. Wilson, Attorney Wilson, say a while ago, if voting wasn't important, why are the powers that be make it so hard? Voting is very, very, very important. Voting is a responsibility, not just a right, it's a responsibility. And what's at stake right now in this election is coming up? Everything. I believe that our human rights, our civil rights, everything is at stake right now. And my thing is that I am trying to get as many people as I can to go to the polls and do and pull the lever. And I think, you know, it's the presidential election, and some people only go vote every 4 years. I think people should understand that, know your vote, know what's on the ballot. If it's the school board, if it's a police juror, it's a councilman, whatever it is, judge, district attorney, you should be involved, because those are the people that control our communities. You know your vote. That's the organization that we have now, KNOWYOURVOTELA.org. And, you know, if you go to our website, it will be everything on there that will explain to you. And if you know somebody that's been in prison and been out 5 years, please encourage them. My number is area code 225-270-5245. My email address is checo@vote-nola.org, and I will put it in the message so everybody can find out. But you know, I encourage people to get involved. You know, we have to vote right now like our lives depend upon it, and in fact, it does. You know, when I looked at the news yesterday, and we're now having close to 200,000 people have died because of, I believe, poor leadership at the top. And if we don't change things, there could be another 200,000 people that may perish. You know, I think every life is important, and, you know, our vote matters, and we have to get to the polls. But let me talk a little bit about, what we believe in. We believe in public safety. I made a mistake years ago, and now I am a better person. But we have to understand public safety, restorative justice, not vengeance. We have to understand that when people come out of prison, you have to have affordable housing. It's a human right, and all residents deserve equal participation. That we have an opportunity to choose who leads us, who takes who's your councilman, who's your district attorney, who's the judge. I mean, a judge is supposed to be like the referee, the DA and the defense, but the judge should be impartial and just interpret the law and be fair. Voting is a fundamental right to citizenship. Also, tax-paying citizens should be allowed to and encouraged to vote. Now, when they were we were hustling, and when I say hustling, we were actually hustling. We were trying to hustle votes in the state legislature to pass the law so we could vote. And my testimony was that I pay taxes, and it just so happened at that time I just sent my income tax in, and I was telling the chairman, I said, "Sir, I just paid my income tax. My taxes pay your salary, but you don't represent me. Nobody up on this committee in the governmental affairs represented anybody that's been in prison or out of prison." And I said, "But I would trade my vote if you told me I didn't have to pay taxes." And he said, "Well, Mr. Yancy, I might go for that myself." But we walked that out of the committee. We was able to bring it to the House. On the representative side, we got more than the 53 votes that we needed, and we had to take it to the Senate side. And the person that I had been lobbying to help at that time was Senator Dan Claytor. And when he got up and spoke, he actually said that I tried to bring him letters from the saints, because we had NFL, we had pastors that said that, hey, former incarcerated people, if they come out of prison, it is better to make them feel a part of society. And then we had probation and parole. The National Association said men and women that come out of prison, when you allow them to participate in the community, they become better people. And he said that, and he was able to help us get our voting rights. And to me, that was very, very important, because I pay taxes. And also, right now it is cumbersome steps that we have to go through to vote. I have to get people, everybody don't have a transportation. So you have to go to your probation office. You have to get that letter saying you've been out. Then you have to take that letter to the registrar's office, and you have to have all your identification and all that. But we worked with the Department of Correction, and the secretary agreed that he wanted to help men and women. So now a man or woman, if you call your probation officer, the district that you are under, I am on parole right now. I had to, you call your district office, and what they will do is they will mail you the letter. That way you don't have to go through that, and then you still have to take that to your registrar. It's a lot different from what Mr. Perry was talking about, and Attorney Wilson, where a regular person can really go online. We're trying to get that, but when they purged me from the rolls, I got convicted. They made it easy. So my thing is, why not, when you purged me from the roll, I didn't have to do anything. Why don't you just let the computers marry with the Department of Corrections and the registrar's office and put me back on? But the Secretary of State fought us tooth and nail. He fought us tooth and nail, because he said, well, you're gonna have former incarcerated people. You don't know what they're gonna do at the polls. They may try to hit somebody. They may try to rob somebody, which had nothing to do with anything. When was the last time somebody heard of someone getting robbed at the election? That just doesn't happen, but it put fear in people. So that is the tactic that they can use, the Secretary of State. And by the way, the registrar's office, did you know that that office is a non-elected office? That office is really passed down from generations to a son, to a daughter. That is not an elected office. That's something we may look at it and do. But, I don't want to get too far off the mission. You know, we're just looking to be restored to full human and civil rights so we can have an opportunity to be a taxpaying citizen and be productive in society. Now, know your vote. When you get a chance to go to our website, we have a ballot this year in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, and Shreveport. And what it is, it's about, we endorse the mayor, we endorse the DA, we're endorsing judges. Now, different from our ballot is, and I want to wrap this up, there's that we don't accept any money to be on our ballot. We sent out a survey, and based upon the answers from the survey, then we make a choice with our board to endorse a person that believed in restorative justice, a person that believed in another chance, a person that believed in listening to former incarcerated people. And any questions that you may have, I see Carrie has put it in there. You can go to know, K-N-O-W, yourvotela.org. And my phone number is area code 225. I will put it in, 270-5245. And if you know anybody that's been incarcerated and they've been out over 5 years or they need any information, please send me an email. I'm gonna put my email in there. I'm gonna put my phone number in. And thank you. And if you need anything else, I'll be glad to answer a question. I hope I wasn't too long. Thank you. It's very important to vote. And I will beat you to the polls.
Yes, Mr. Yancy, that's 100% right. You were great. Thank you so much for all of that information. That was wonderful. We are going to move on to our next presenter is Miss Nia Weeks. Nia Weeks, she is the founder and executive director of Citizen She United. It's an advocacy group in Louisiana that's building an aligned base of Black women who inform, advocate for, and enact a collective policy agenda to address the needs of Black women across the state. She's the former director of policy and advocate at Women with a Vision, another local nonprofit here in New Orleans. Nia is a native of New Orleans and has spent years fighting for the rights of women, children, and families. She received her bachelor's degree in communications with a minors in women's studies at Indiana State University, where her advocacy training began. After completing her undergraduate education, she worked in public relations before beginning law school. She then graduated with a law degree from Loyola School of Law in New Orleans in 2009. Thank you so much, Ms. Weeks. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. And I am going to do my PowerPoint. So let me see if I can get fancy real quick. Here we go. Yay. Hopefully it's gonna work today. No, here we go.
Welcome to She Shows Up. You are the fire, ignite and unite. Together we will win the fight. Rise up and inspire with your natural fire. Together we will win the fight. Dear Black woman.
Yay! So, we are invigorating a campaign really centered around activating Black women across the state of Louisiana. The reality is just giving you statistics. There are 700,000 Black women eligible to vote in Louisiana. 500,000+ are actually registered. And these are numbers that come from a wonderful organization here called the Power Coalition. And 157,000 of us, though, however, are considered frequent voters. And so, crazy. When you look at the number eligible, the number actually vote, you see this as a reality, right? Voter suppression is a thing, right? Like, they've been intentionally doing this to keep us from exercising the full access to our power. And so we are bringing hope and joy to the voting process, right? We center ourselves in such a space where they put so many barriers on us that we feel weighted and we feel like we're going underground. And we're like, no, for us to get out of that, we got to do the exact opposite of what they're trying to do. So what Citizen She is doing is activating a vibrant base of Black women across the state, bringing hope and joy into the voting process, right? And so our thoughts are, this is what we're saying this year. It's not about what will happen if you don't vote. It's about what is possible if you do. I was on a panel with Representative Roy Suppression not too long ago, and I said, Royce, as a state senator, I'm sorry, as a state representative, if all 700,000 Black women showed up to vote, what would it look like? And he said, sky is the limit. And I said, that's what I want us to believe. That would, no matter, like, even though they're trying to do all this stuff, and as all the other presenters said, is that they're trying to bury us. But we pull ourselves through. The reality is that blossom, that garden is incredible. And so we're trying to cultivate that garden, cultivate that space. And so this is our saying for this whole campaign cycle. Yes, sis, your life and your vote do matter. Sincerely, other Black women, squad up. And so we are embarking on what we call the road to 300,000. We're trying to double the number of Black women that are considered to be freedom voters from 157,000 to 300,000 strong. And that will allow us to do more than just have good results this election cycle. It'll allow us to go into our cities, our state, and our legislators with an army. You know, the reality is that Black women have the worst outcomes of any community in the entire country right here in Louisiana. We have the highest maternal mortality rate in the entire country. We have the largest wage gap at 47 cents a dollar in the entire country. But we are one of the highest voting blocks in our state. So there's a direct correlation between who shows up at the polls and how policymakers respond to them. And so I'm like, okay, bet we're just gonna bring a whole army so that when one of us shows up at the Capitol, when one of us shows up at our state legislature, when one of us shows up at any of our city councils, that they see the entire army of 300,000 plus Black women growing strong. I'm also really excited because we believe in investing in Black women. And so we hire Black women. And so this is not like my dope, incredible team of Black women that are working towards this work, right? And all of these women have specific jobs. You know, some are doing business partnerships, some doing young people engagement. You know, most of our campaign work, actually 90% of our campaign work this election cycle is all around doing lives on Facebook. We do programs all over. We do info. Today we did Topic Tuesday. Every Tuesday we do a Topic Tuesday. We've done Topic Tuesday on what was today? Today was on the census. Last week was on the importance of federal courts. We've done the importance of what the heck does the DA do? We keep talking about the DA race. What does that person do, right? And so we're doing those informationals. We tell stories and do video and interviews with Black women across the state, across the country, because we believe that Black women are not a monolith. We don't all have the same story. And so we're not going to put out that we'll all do the same thing, think the same way, feel the same way. So respect the individuality of how people present and how they see things and how they experience life. But we also understand that as Black folks, and especially Black women, there are common threads that we feel. And so we also we weave together those individual stories within the common threads and uplift it so that we can create a collective policy agenda for Black women. Our campaign strategy on this cycle is called Squad Up. We're working with an organization called Motivate Vote, and we're asking Black women to squad up. So if you go to shesquadsup.motivote.us, you get on our platform, you form your group. And you and your group do all the simple things of civic engagement. You can register, check your registration. You can create a voting profile, whatever you want to do. And it's all like click, 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 and click. But as you click, you get points. And as your point bank grows up, you can go to our point site and redeem prizes. I know that the other day I got to my 200 points, and my 200 points makes me eligible to get a signed copy of Becoming from Michelle Obama. And we have someone that's filling up that prize bank with, prizes from Black-led and Black-focused businesses across the state, across the country. We have partnerships with great groups like the Saints and the Pelicans. And so there's going to be the MLB filling that up with dope prizes. So form your squad. Get on our link, form your squad, get those prizes. There's also a competition among squads. The top 10 squads gonna get a dope prize at the end. So everybody join Squad Up. And if you know people, you don't have to be a Black woman. We have allies that are challenging Black women. So we have groups of allies that are squatting up as well. Like I said, each week we do something different. In September, we're doing digital organizing, role of the DA, courts matter. This week is our Free to Be Me hair campaign. We're calling it Detangling the Vote. Every night, if you go to Citizen She United on our Facebook page, or 4910, our production partners Facebook page, or my Facebook page at Nia Weeks, you will see beautiful interviews with Black women. Yesterday, we did Wendy Green, who is behind the Crown Act. Today, we have beautiful Black women, Gia Hamilton and Joya Cryer Perry. We'll have a special message from Congresswoman Lee Industry tonight. And then tomorrow we have She Shows Up, where we have all the Black women behind the crown act coming on. Thursday, we got a Black men's panel talking about the beauty of Black women and our hair. And then Friday, we have Black women in the industry, as well as our girls. We do a summer camp every year called Cyber Justice, where we teach young Black girls about digital organizing, and they create campaigns for change. This year, they did it around hair and voting, so they're presenting their videos, being interviewed by an actress and filmmaker. Next, we're also doing a screening of All Skin Folk and Kinfolks leading up to the vice presidential debate. We're gonna have a vice presidential debate watch party with a bunch of Black women across the country. And then we're having a youth debate panel. And our young people are also gonna say how they feel about this election, because their voices also matter, even if they're not able to vote yet, because at some point they will, and want to engage them now. We're gonna be doing some work around voter suppression, around poll workers and poll watchers, and our strategies around early voting, which starts thankfully to organizations like the Power Coalition and Vote. Early voting starts October 16th, ends October 26th. Y'all get y'all people, because that's the easiest time to vote, because then we can address issues around voter suppression early before Election Day, right? If we have people going en masse during early voting, we're gonna have them shaking in their boots, because that is how we win, because we're able to safeguard our people earlier and better during the early voting process. Just giving y'all some examples of some of the presentations that we do. We talk about racial justice, implicit buying. What the heck does the Attorney General, the District Attorney do? We do digital organizing training with Black women. We train groups on how to do organizing with young people through short videos. We do a lot of mentorship programming with Black women's organizations, and we're partnering with as many Black women led and focused organizations throughout the state as we can.
So my fellow Black women, no matter what the world says, we know that we and our families matter. Citizen She is calling you and all of your friends to gather your network and squad up in this year's election cycle, because we have so much on the line. And yes, sis, your life and your vote do matter. So exercise your right. Peace and blessings from Maya.
Yes, Maya. Thank you, Maya, for that wonderful message. We have celebrities doing that all throughout the campaign cycle. Messages similar to that. Black women from across the gambit. You know, we believe that all Black women, no matter where, who, how they present, how they feel, how they understand that each person's story is important. Each person's vote matters. We believe in educating and storytelling, being inclusive and being open, respectful, filling with joy and listening. They are trying to bury us, and we are not going to let them bring us down. And so we're creating a campaign that speaks exactly that, that love and joy and happiness is exactly what will win at the end, because it will, and we have to believe that. I tell my staff every day, we walk as if we've already won. And every time they try to do something or something happens, we embrace it, we internalize it, we bring it in, and then we bring it back up for the next day, because we have so much good to fight for and so much good available to us. So Citizen She, Road to 300,000, you can contact me. My email is she@citizenshe.com. And yeah, and that is who we are and what we believe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weeks, for that enthusiastic presentation and very happy way that you did. I really do appreciate that. For our last presenter, I have the honor in introducing Ms. Melissa Haley, Melissa Smith-Haley.
I woke up this morning.
LSMW is Director of Supportive Services at a nonprofit agency in Southeast Louisiana. She has successfully managed state and federal contracts totaling over $8 million annually for staff over 80. During her 15 years at the organization, she has held for the following positions: has successfully managed a single room Assistant Program Director for Substance Abuse Services, Program Director of Recovery Services, Program Director for Children and Family Services, and Program Director of Supported Service currently. Melissa has been provided several times with well-deserved reputation for getting things in order. Staff training, program growth, contact, development, in management, hiring, program outcomes, quality assurance, and stakeholder engagement. Melissa receives her bachelor's degree in mass communication from Xavier University in Louisiana and a master's degree in social work from Clark Atlanta University in Georgia. Melissa has been married for 22 years to attorney Otina Haley, son of the New Orleans civil rights activist Orthea Haley, Orthomia, I believe I'm pronouncing it right. And Melissa has two daughters, Nina, a first-year pharmacy student at Hampton University, Virginia, and Kai, a high school senior graduate in 2020. The Haleys reside here in New Orleans. Melissa is a second-generation social worker who grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, with her parents, Dr. Frederick E. Smith and Conrad Mary Smith. Melissa has been a member of the National Association of Black Social Workers for over 5 years. She's been volunteering as a student in New Orleans in 1993. Currently the National Vice President and serves as president of Clark Atlanta Metro District's Columbia chapter. She was the National National Conference co-chairperson for 4 years, National Plea co-chairperson. Melissa is passionate with community in which she has the strength and base of practitioners who is committed to debunking negative stereotypes and helping other self-activists. Her personal motto is no one should be defined by their challenges. Right, I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Melissa Haley.
As my ancestors would say, first giving honor to the Creator, because through the Creator, all things are possible. And through the liberation journey for vote, that is exactly what Black people did. They sang, they played, they marched, they did everything they could to have the right to vote. Like she wrote, Ida B. Wells, she worked for women's suffrage and she never had that right to vote during that time. It took her several years before she gained the right to vote. And the only way to right wrongs is to shed the light on truth. My mother-in-law, Retha Castle Haley, is another person that you should know. She is a person who worked tirelessly. Her life ended before the age of 50 because liberation was her destination. And she worked hard for each and every one of us to have the right to vote, to eat, to sit, to work together in the community. As the president of the National Association of Black Social Workers, since 1968, we have been anti-racist. Anti-racism is something good to say now, it's something cute to talk about, but we have been anti-racist and we walked out of a social work organization because of racism, because of not having Black leadership. And as a result of that, for 52 years, we have provided safe space for African Americans and African people across the African diaspora to be able to talk and to lead social work practice. This is our purpose. We have solutions. Most of the solutions deal with systemic racism and the challenge with systemic racism. Structural racism, as you can see, has been going on for a very long time. Although we celebrate a lot in terms of what happens in the community, a lot didn't happen in the community for African Americans. It has been a very short time since we've had the right to vote. Many people fought and died so we could have that right. One to note, it is one when African Americans did have an opportunity to vote, were elected, and did represent well. It was short-lived. Since that time, there have been 4 Black governors, 2 lieutenant governors that were appointed, 2 that were elected. Since the Reconstruction period, Blacks have had very little opportunity on a state level to be able to represent. In territories like the District of Columbia, which is not a state, would be one of the few states that would be run by Black organizations, by Black leaders, that they would represent the community. Now that gentrification has occurred in DC, you may see DC become a state because the predominantly Black will not be what DC looks like in the current trend, the way money and the way resources are allocated in the city. In the state of Louisiana, we have had 4 Black representatives represent us on the national level. Here is my congressman who I love dearly, Cedric Richmond. He's standing there with 4 social workers, and we are working there. We are on Capitol Hill fighting for homelessness. On my first picture, you saw me under the bridge. I work in the community. I work for people experiencing homelessness, and we advocate on a national level. We know our representatives by name. We depend on them to ensure that we get what we need in our community. 27 states in this country have never had an African American represent them in Congress. 27 states and territories. Still today, there has not been an African American to represent it in Congress. We have a very long way to go, and we have much to do. As we celebrate 100 years of women being able to vote, I very seldomly can celebrate this accomplishment, because Susan B. Anthony, although she is celebrated for what she did for women's suffrage, she was a racist. She was a practicing racist. She said she would cut off her right hand before she would vote for a Negro or work for a Negro to be able to vote. Although Black women stood with her, fought with her, they did not have the same rights she had once she had them. Susan B. Anthony is celebrated in the white community. She is not a friend of mine. Fannie Lou Hamer is my friend. She sang those songs that I sang, and when I woke up this morning, my mind was on Fannie Lou Hamer. If you don't know who she is, I want you to listen to the 8 minutes where she tells about how she was beaten, how she was abused, how she heard other women beaten and abused because she simply wanted the right to vote. She lost her housing. Her family lost their housing simply because she wanted the right to vote. She was a very simple woman. She believed in God. She trusted God. She sang the Negro spirituals, and she worked her way to justice. She said, just like I am, she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now we have our only Black senator, Sister Kamala Harris, who may be the next vice president of this country. It will be a major accomplishment because women have had a very difficult time in this country getting access. Senator Karen Bass, we are supporting as the National Association of Black Social Workers, a social work initiative. Senator Bass is a social worker. The Community Emergency Response Act begins to decriminalize challenging behaviors, allowing practitioners in the community to work as opposed to putting people in jail because our law enforcement are not equipped to handle their challenges. Additionally, we are seeing mentorship. At the bottom, you see Cori Bush. She is likely to be the next representative, a Black female representative out of the state of Missouri. She is there with Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, who it was 100 years after Reconstruction before they had a Black governor in their state. Many states have not. Here she's mentoring Cori Bush, a young woman, a single mother, who will be on Capitol Hill very soon, and she will represent the community I love, St. Louis. She and I went to the same school. She's about 10 years my junior, but yes, she is making progressive moves and steps in the community in terms of the LGBTQ agenda, for poor people in our community, and for African Americans. Now, the election is important. The election is important to young people. It is sexy now to vote, right? Well, we hope that it becomes dope, as Sister Nia Weeks says, that you get out into the community and you exercise your right to vote. The election is something that is very important, that as African Americans, we cannot take for granted. Brother Checo said he spent 7,309 days incarcerated and had to fight for his right to be able to vote. I'm voting for Brother Checo. I'm voting for the brothers like Brother Checo who cannot vote and still struggling to gain the access to the polls. Mild justice. Skin folk, not kinfolk, is what Sister Nia Reed says. This is a Negro extraordinary. Russellville, Kentucky. 100 miles from where he was raised. These are Black men who were lynched in his community. He had the audacity not to pursue legal justice. Just because people are Black, that doesn't mean that they represent the community. For him to ignore those brothers hanging on the trees and to allow Breonna Taylor to get killed in her bed and absolutely no repercussions for injustice is treasonous by all accounts. Breonna Taylor was 4 years older than my daughter when she was killed. It's tragic to me to think that their lives mean so very little. Even as a pharmacy student at an HBCU, my daughter's life is not safe. She is not safe with law enforcement. She is not safe in the community. I'm voting for Nia and I'm voting for Breonna. I'm also voting for my daughter, Kai, an aspiring attorney who on the left, she celebrated being an intern with Nia Weeks. Even when I can't inspire her, other people can inspire her, because it needs multiple voices to talk to people in our community to share the same story that our ancestors endured in order to be able to vote. Voting is a responsibility that we all must take very seriously, that we need to work with our clients to inspire, to educate, to transport, to do what we need to do to ensure that they access their right to vote. At NABSW, we have 72 chapters across the country that are engaged in liberation activities. We're hosting town hall meetings. We're participating in protests to ensure that our community is aware of their rights, ensure that our community can not only register, but they can be transported to the polls and ensure that they get out and vote on election day or prior to that mail-in ballots or other means. In NABSW, we're conducting textathons from now through the end of October, where we're sending out 100,000 texts a week in efforts to get people to get out of the polls. We are asking people to vote. We are assuring that they know how to vote, and we're helping them to connect to access in the community. The National Association of Black Social Workers, we have a community action notice that tells from the voice of youth who cannot vote the value of voting. So if you could play the community action notice. We can't hear it.
We can't hear it, Carrie.
It's in our future.
I need you to vote because I can't. Voting is your chance to stand up for the...
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare with another command. All right, I think we're good. Here we go.
I need to tell you why I'm reminding you to vote.
I need to be sure when I retire, Medicare will be in place for me.
You need to vote because it is important to me that we have a voice in our future.
I need you to vote because I can't. Voting is your chance to stand up for the issues you care about.
Like public transportation,
raising minimum wage, or funding our local schools. I need you to vote because I can't.
If you don't vote, someone else will make the decisions for you.
The power is in your vote. Make sure your voice is heard.
Make sure our voice is heard.
Vote.
I need you to vote because
I can't. Do you want to make a positive impact?
Voting gives you that chance.
You got to vote. Vote.
Vote.
That's it. We march in the streets for Black Lives Matter.
But we will also march to the voting booth in November. I need you to vote because I can't.
Did you know a ballot is stronger than a bullet? People died so you could vote.
Vote for those who died for your freedom.
Vote or lose your right to complain. The National Association for Black Social Workers needs you to
vote.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was wonderful. Thank you to all of our speakers today. I am so motivated myself. Please let me know how I can help and maybe how our students can help with that. Get out the vote through text. We would love to participate. You know, this is such an important right that we have. We thought it was really important for us as the Tulane School of Social Work to express how important it is to exercise your right to vote. And for you social workers out there, it is your ethical responsibility to educate your clients about their rights to vote. If your clients are having issues because of any issues related to the legal system, please feel free. You can call me, you can call Checo Yancy, you can email me, or you can email any of the advocacy groups that we have presented today. because if your clients are having those issues, we can help them navigate through the process. For your clients who may have issues with transportation and the like, we hope that you can help them to navigate that process as well, because it is very important for us to vote. And it's important for our people that we work with to know that they are empowered and they have the power in their vote. It's very, very important. I want to thank our speakers, our panelists. We would like to thank Mr. Lawrence Perry, who is our social work student, who will be graduating this December and going into in the community and being a part of, we hope, the New Orleans community, but whatever community he decides to join, I'm sure he is going to be an excellent social worker, and I'm happy to have him working with me this semester. I'd like to also thank Mr. Ron Wilson, Checo Yancy, Neil Wilkes, and Melissa Haley, all who are advocates and strong, powerful advocates in our community, both nationally and locally. So we need to understand that it is important for us to be out there, to be on the front lines, and to be a part of what is important to our local and national communities. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. I want to remind you that Tulane School of Social Work has started the Empowering Change Task Force, which is working with issues of race and equity within Tulane and in the community. And we also have a website, which Carrie will drop into the chat. So thank you very much. I don't think we have any questions, but if you do have questions, feel free to email us. And this presentation will be made available on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much.